Continuing to learn the Maimer Vehaya Ekev Tishmu, that the Rebbe said on Shabbos Parshas Ekev, Mevarchim Elul Tavshin Yud Aleph. The beginning of the Maimer we learned that the Rebbe asked the question of how can we say Vehaya Ekev Tishmon? How can we give a condition to these three concepts of Bris, Chesed, and Shvuah? Bris, Chesed, and Shvuah are three things that are unconditional. It's a connection which is beyond any type of condition, and it's not dependent on anything. And another question the Rebbe asked, why does it say Ekev and not Im? And the third question was, why do we say Mishpatim if we're talking about the mitzvahs Shadam Dash Ba'Kev, of the mitzvahs that a person usually steps on with his heels, which means that he's not careful about? That shouldn't be the mitzvahs of Mishpatim, the ones that make sense. On the contrary, usually what happens is that a mitzvah that doesn't make sense, Chukim and Eidos, that's what a person won't be so careful about. And in order to explain this, the Rebbe continues to explain the connection that there is between the Neshama and Hashem. And the Rebbe quotes the Maimer Azeh, Tlas Kishrin Miskashran Da Beda. There are three ties that are tied to one another. The Jewish people are tied to the Torah, and the Torah is tied to Hashem, and as a result, the Torah ties the Jewish people to Hashem. And then there's the deeper connection that the Jewish people are tied to Hashem. And the Rebbe expresses the meaning of the word kishrin, ties, rather than mizdatkin, connections. That a connection is something which is there in its essence. In order for there to be a connection, it doesn't have to be two separate entities. Whereas a kesher, a tie, is with two things that are two separate things. And like we know, v'nafshoy kshura b'nafshoy, two people, there could be nafshoy kshura b'nafshoy. The neshama, the way it's above, is connected to Hashem. But when it comes down here into this world, even if it was a tzaddik that's oived Hashem bi'ava v'yira b'tanugim, he may even be a tzaddik that's serving Hashem with the greatest form of love and fear of Hashem. And yet it will always be an existence, a separate entity. The most he can reach is that the separate entity ties itself to its real existence with Hashem, but it has to be a tie, because there's a yesh, he exists. Whereas the neshama, the way it was above before it came down into this world, was completely and totally connected to Hashem. It was davik, it was connected and it cleaved to its source, to Hashem. And this is why the Zohar uses the words kishrin, because the Zohar wants to explain to us that even when the neshama comes down into this world, to the extent that it's a separate entity, that it's a yesh, it's an existence, it still is kosher, it's tied and connected to Hashem. Moreover, the Rebbe explains, not only is it still tied and connected to Hashem, but in a certain sense, the connection that comes through is kashrus, through being tied to Hashem, is a deeper connection than that comes through dveikus. And like we know that this kashrus, once, even though it's two separate things that are tied together, but once they're tied together, they become totally one. It's not anymore two separate things that are connected. And why is that? And so to explain this, the Rebbe quoted the pasuk, Shcheira ani v'nava b'nois Yerushalayim, that the neshama, the way it's down here in this world, speaks to b'nois Yerushalayim. The neshama, the way it's the daughter of Yerushalayim, Yirei Shalim, complete fear of heaven, which means the way it's connected, the way it's one with its source before it came down into this world, the way it's in the ultimate fear and love of Hashem. And the neshama says to the neshama, to the source of the neshama above, Shchairani, it's true that as I come down into this world, I'm black, I'm dark, I'm completely dirtied with all the things that there are in this world, with the existence of this world. And yet, v'nava, that in itself brings out my beauty. And the reason is that my separation from B'nai Yerushalayim, the fact that I'm far away from my source, from the completion of bittul and subjugation and fear of Hashem, that itself arouses in me a yearning and a tzimain, a thirst. And like we know that it says in Tehillim, that when a person is be'eretz tziyah v'ayef, Beli mayim, when he's in a thirsty land, where there's no water, he's far away, he feels then the thirst, he feels sama lechanavshi, a thirst that even the neshama, the way it's above, could never feel that. Because he knows that he's now in a place that there's a possibility of doing an Aveira, there's a possibility of not doing a mitzvah or even doing an Aveira, and therefore that itself, the concealment itself, arouses that thirst, and that brings the ultimate beauty in the neshama. Now, in continuation to this, the Rebbe asks a question. We know that a real tie, a real knot has to be a double tie, one knot atop the other. And similarly also, the only real knot and tie to Hashem is when there's not only Yira, or not only Ava. It's not merely one thing, love or fear, but there's both the love and fear of Hashem. And like it says in Tanya, that the neshama is like a bird, or the mitzvahs are like birds, that need wings in order to fly upwards to Hashem. And just as a bird can't fly with only one wing, so also a person can't fly, and his neshama and the mitzvahs that he does can't connect to Hashem if all they have is one wing, if they only have only fear of Hashem or only love of Hashem. And so it's understood that if we're going to have a real kesher and a real connection to Hashem, it has to be not only Ava, the love and the yearning for Hashem, but also Yira. Now seemingly the explanation that we gave in Shchayra and even Ava, that because of the concealment and the distance that arouses and inspires a greater thirst to Hashem, that's something which is only the thirst and the love for Hashem. But Yira, fear and awe of Hashem seemingly is nevertheless greater with the neshama the way it's above. Because what's the idea of Yira? Yira is Oisiyos Re'iyah, which also actually is connected with this week's Parsha. Re'ei, Anoichi Noisin. Re'ei, when a person looks and he sees, that inspires him with awe. That's also why Yira and Re'iyah is the same letters, which is also the letters of Aryeh. Aryeh is the mazel of this week that we're going to bench the month of Elul. It's the last Shabbos in the month of Av. The mazel of Av is Aryeh, and like the Medrash says, that Allah Aryeh, b'mazel Aryeh, v'hechriv Aryeh, the lion came up in the mazel of lion and destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. Al-Menas, in order sheyavai Aryeh, that the lion should come b'mazel Aryeh, in the mazel of lion, v'yivna Aryeh, and build the Beis HaMikdash. What's Aryeh? What's special about Aryeh? Aryeh shoag mi lo yira. When the lion roars, who does not fear? Who is not afraid of it? And it's the same thing with the shofar. Mitaka b'shofar b'ir b'am lo yechradu. Why? Because it's Aryeh is the essence of godliness. It expresses the essence of Hashem that's above the world. And when a person has this Aryeh, the Re'iyah, which has the level of Keser, that he's able to see godliness, that's when he's in awe of godliness. And that's why from the Aryeh of Av, that's what blesses the month of Elul. And Aryeh is Rosh Tevis, Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Nishana Rabbah, because the power for the awe, inspiration of all of these special days comes from understanding and a seeing which is above understanding. So that all happens in the neshama the way it's above, the way it's connected to Hashem. How is it possible that when a person comes down here, that's how he's inspired with fear? Fear comes from recognizing and realizing and understanding, but not just understanding, seeing and connecting to the greatness of Hashem. Just understanding it down here doesn't inspire a greater fear. So when it comes to love, we can understand the yearning, and when a person understands the greatness of Hashem, and he knows how far he is, then it brings him a greater inspiration that he should love Hashem. But when it comes to Yira, understanding doesn't bring a person this bittul of Yira. So how could it be that a person will be able to be inspired more with Yira when he's down here? The whole idea of Yira is that it's the opposite of a person's existence. Why? Because it's bittul. Yira means you become so inspired, you become subjugated, you go out of your existence. The neshama up there that doesn't have an existence, it's totally one with Hashem, has yira. But down here, it's shchayra, it's dark, it's in a concealment, meaning it feels an existence. It can't reach this idea of yira. So that should be more, it should be stronger when it's up there. And so the Rebbe explains that you're right. The real strength and power of the yira is specifically when the neshama is up there. That's when it's connected to Hashem. That's when it sees Hashem. It doesn't just understand Him. It recognizes the reality of Hashem, and that brings it to totally give itself over to Hashem. However, nevertheless, when the neshama is down here, even though seemingly the type of fear and awe that's inspired is not as high, but nevertheless it's a higher level of yira. What's the reason? Because the whole idea of bittul means when a person gives themselves over. Bittul means I totally give myself over. Now as long as the neshama is up there, its yira doesn't come from its bittul, its entire existence is godliness. But when the neshama comes down here and it feels itself in an existence shchairani, it's an existence of here I exist, and nevertheless he puts himself aside and he realizes that in the reality there's only Hashem. That's a much deeper idea of yira. That means he goes out of his entire existence, even the spiritual existence of the neshama. And like we know the difference between the bittul of Ein Oid, there's nothing else but Hashem, and the bittul of the fact that Kula Kamei Kalachshiv, that before Hashem everything's worthless. When it comes to the bittul of Oir, when it comes to the bittul of the feeling, the godly light that there is, the godly energy, there the bittul is Kalachshiv. There the bittul is in a way of Kalachshiv, where the Oyer feels, I don't exist. Why? Oyer, its whole existence is only to reveal the Mar, the source. So the Oyer feels non-existence. But the bittul of Ein Oyer, there is nothing else but Hashem. Not that I don't exist. Oyer is, I have no existence because my whole existence is to reveal Hashem. The neshama, the way it's up there, feels I have no existence. My whole existence is to reveal Hashem. But when the neshama is down here and exists, and yet it knows that even in my existence, even in the place where I am in Shchairani, the reality is that there's nothing else but Hashem. That's a much deeper bittul. And that bittul is only able to be felt when the neshama is down here. In the neshama up there, it feels my whole existence is Hashem, whereas when the neshama comes down here, it totally loses its existence. It loses its existence in a way of recognizing that even where I am, as an existence, the only real existence is Hashem. So even in Yira, there's also the idea of Shcheira Nivenava. Then the Rebbe continues to explain that also the connection between the Torah and Hashem, and the Torah and the Jewish people, the connection of the Torah specifically when it's down here in this world. Because when the Torah is up there, when you're learning Torah, the spirituality of Torah, you're learning Torah the way Torah is revealing only Hashem and there's nothing else. That's the bittul of Kalachshiv. All the Torah is revealing godliness. But when the Torah comes into the physical world and it deals with an ox and a donkey and a cow, it deals with physical existences. And yet over there in the physical existence, it's felt that the reality is Hashem. That's the deepest type of bittul. And Mitzvah Hashem, next time we'll continue with that and we'll complete the idea of Vehaya Ekev Tishmun in the Maimer.